Did. Okay. Welcome, everybody. It's nice to hear Benny in English. Or maybe one time we'll give a Shir in Swiss. I don't know how many people will show up. But Dr. Benny, of course, it's always a pleasure to have him. He's given many, many Shirim for Torah Motion over the years in English. Of course, he's doing it. This is his time slot for his regular Hebrew Shir in Sefer Tehillim. He is writing a book on Sefer Tehillim, working on for many years. Always a creative, innovative thinker. We met many years ago when he was doing his fellowship in pediatric hematology oncology at the Hospital for Sick Children in Toronto after graduating medical school in Switzerland. I learned in Yeshivat Har Etzion. While he was in Toronto on the side, he got a PhD at University in Toronto in bioethics. I think you're doing that now. You're doing oncology research in Israel now. That's what you're working on. Yeah, and he's working on
Yes.
Tehillim. So this is just a side gig for him teaching Torah, and but so it's always a pleasure. And I want to thank today's Shir is being sponsored by Esther Koenig in memory of her mother, Malka Krausman, Malka Bat Moshe Yitzchak, and Temamiro. We should have happy occasions. And Benny is broadcasting from a wedding, so we should be zochet to have many, many smachot. And as he says, Shir Hashirim is the perfect Shir to give when you're at a wedding and you're looking for something else to do. Then talk to the Chas and Kala. Okay, Vakasha, Dr. Benny.
Thank you, Rabbi Jay. It's a pleasure to teach. You said a pleasure to hear me in English. I would not share this statement necessarily because my English might be quite a pain.
I meant that more people can hear you in English and can hear you in Hebrew. That's all I meant.
Let's benefit from the doubt, whatever that means. I have my parshanut, but thank you anyway. It's a pleasure to teach. And Rabbi Jay, we started the first shiur when we were in Toronto in 1991, that you had the honor that you invited me and I spoke to your kehillah, to your congregation. And I'm very pleased to continue the ongoing teaching, kol hakavod for your lahagdil Torah u'lahadir. I focus on Tehillim, as you said, and other topics, but I actually am very happy to present you tonight a topic on Shir Hashirim, because it's a very special book. It's a book where I had a lot of thoughts and a lot of the methodology, which I use for other topics in Tanakh, come very, very clearly to full power, to fruition, talking about Shir Hashirim. Not to have intertextuality and contextuality in the game is for me like missing the point of the book. And I want to start with 4 questions, which I hope to give you an answer. Does Shir Hashirim have a structure, and is there a story? And I call it, is there a context? Does it begin somewhere? Does it end somewhere? And that's an open question. I'm not 100% convinced it is to all the details a story, but it has a clear structure. And I want to show that to you with only a few examples. I want to ask the question, how does Shir Hashirim fit in with other books in the Tanakh? It is a very unique book. One of the first prints of the Bible did not include Shir Hashirim. It didn't fit the Christian environment where the book was printed. I think it was in Venice, one of the first prints of the Bible. They didn't include Shir Hashirim. Passt sich nicht. It didn't fit to the entire structure of the entire Tanakh. And the main question is, what is the message of Shir Hashirim? Is it a wonderful series of love stories, or is it the allegory? Why do we read it at the end on Pesach? These are a lot of questions. I don't have a chance to answer all these topics, but I want to give a certain idea, some key insights. And if we talk about the structure of the entire book, only 8 chapters, 8 chapters is not like Tehillim, 150 chapters, which is huge and needs a lifetime to study it. Shir Hashirim with only 8 is much easier to oversee. Still, it's not enough for a shiur to give the whole structure. So I will keep it short and will give only a few examples on that. However, when it comes to the connection to other books, and that is what I call the intertextuality, The context is, what is Shir Hashirim as a book? What is the text of each song and of each chapter and of the entire book? Is there a context in Shir Hashirim? To talk about the intertext is a question, intertext with what? With Egyptian love songs, with love songs from this time period? No, might be. But I want to see the intertext with the Bible, and the main message is, if we learn Shir Hashirim, we learn the Bible. And Shir Hashirim as part of the Bible, and how does it connect it with the Bible? That's what I want to show here. And my statement is, I will come to the bottom line right away at the beginning. The bottom line is, if we look at Shir Hashirim as part of a book of the entire Bible, it puts us in a totally different light. We need to compare Yeshayahu. We need to compare Shmot. We need to compare Mishlei. And we see how it fits as a book with many, many, many interesting connections. And it actually elaborates ideas from other books and has an ongoing dialogue. And this question, how it fits to other books in the Bible, is the answer for the question number 3. And question number 3, once we understand what the message is, by looking at the entire Tanakh, we will hopefully understand why it was chosen for Pesach. So for context and intertext, I want to start just to get an idea how wonderful music works. We hear here first just Yitzhak Perlman on his own. He plays with the violin. But all of a sudden, with the next 40 seconds, 30 seconds, you will hear the entire concert, the entire orchestra playing together, but you hear one experience with many, many voices. That is what I want to show for Shir Hashirim. So let's get a little bit in the mood, and we'll take it from there. That's what I wanted to share with you as an introduction. There is one voice, but there are many, many voices playing together. And the beauty is that we hear them all together. I think exactly the same is true for Shir Hashirim. If I show you now my handout, which I did not share as a handout as such, you would right away fire and close the Zoom and call it a day, because it's impossible to learn all the eight chapters together. Still, I have this format and want to elaborate it. It will be big like that, but it can be a Megillah, and that's the way the Megillah is read. You open it here, v'ze mitgalgel v'mitgolel, from the beginning to the end. A Megillah has a story. And Shir Hashirim has a beginning and an end. A lot of repetitions. And I want to show you the context, which you see here. I will take only 2 examples to show the context, that there is a repetition of words, there is inclusion of the entire Megillah, and show you a reference in order to get an idea about it. And of course, really to understand it, that is a huge topic to read song by song. How does it continue the previous one? How does it prepare the next one? That's the context, and I put that in red from one text to the other, and I will give you examples afterwards. I will keep the context short because, as I said, to learn the entire book, I have no chance, but I want to show you the idea, beginning and end and in the middle. If we talk about the intertext, it is a crucial technique to understand what does Shir Hashirim want from us. It has an ongoing dialogue with all other books. And you can see here, without even being capable to read all the analogies, Each little box is a totally different source in the Bible. And I have much more than what you can see here. For each chapter, there are many, many allusions and analogies, which are a dialogue to another book. I'm not trying to show you all of them, but I want to show you, if we look at the intertext, it's a commentary on Shir Hashirim, because Shir Hashirim is part of the entire Bible. If we look at Shir Hashirim only as a unit, we will not find, in my opinion, the right understanding what Shir Hashirim is. We will look at it as a beautiful song of love stories, how they meet each other, how they are longing to see each other, how they miss each other, how they come together. Beautiful love stories. And that is one important level of Shir Hashirim as a book. But if we see it in the intertext, it has a totally new dimension. And I want to make a clear statement. The intertext is part of the parshanut, of the interpretation. We will not understand the meaning of the book without looking at the intertext. So let's get started with the rules. I use the search systems and use whatever I know from statistics or whatever I can use to know from statistics to find, oh, we have a pasuk here. It appears the same in Mishlei. It appears the same in Tehillim, in Yeshayahu. Is it really unique? Please show me it is only here and only there. If that is true, I will try to give an explanation why. The statistics is just descriptive to show the facts. The explanation for it is we have to think about it. And the rabbinical literature, here a picture by the Gaon, the Gra, they have beautiful insights, which we don't always necessarily understand how the Midrash works, what the reasoning is that the Midrash came to the conclusion, but I trust them very much. And here we have these two different approaches. And when it comes to intertextuality and to the interpretation of the text, we will see how they play together in a beautiful way, like Beethoven. And that's what I want to show you with a new pair of glasses. I want to refer to this very interesting review paper from Richard Davidson, who reviewed some 20 years ago interesting papers about the literary structure of the Song of Songs. And he reviewed a previous one, actually 3 previous researchers, and put them together. I liked it. I wouldn't call it a meta-analysis. It's a review paper. And he put some very, very interesting new insights to it. And I learned a lot from this paper. I strongly recommend to read his 20 pages, who is interested to understand the structure. However, and I say it with a great gratitude that he researched the topic and published that, but I say it with quite a lot of frustration. He showed psukim at the beginning, at the end, and he found a structure. And he showed the words are here and there. He didn't show systematically that these terms appear only here, what I consider as an important background from the statistics. Statistics will not give the last word, but are important tool. But he didn't explain at all what the message is and what the story is. So we have a nice opportunity to learn about the facts, and he obviously wanted to leave it open that we explain it. And here's the structure of the book. I can magnify it, it will not get much clearer, but what I want you to see, it has 4 letters, Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Dalet, and afterwards it has Dalet, Gimel, Bet, Aleph. It's a chiastic or a symmetric structure. Why Aleph, Bet have one piece here and one here, and the same for Bet and Bet with the chukchik, and Dalet is just in the middle. For Gimel, we need to take 4 different scenes together, which is Gimel 1, Gimel 2, Gimel 3, Gimel 4, and they appear in the same sequence as Gimel 1, Gimel 2, Gimel 3, Gimel 4. If you take that, and you got the handout, you got the presentation, if you take that and read the entire Megillah, I think you will recognize the story. That's the way I feel. Now I want to show you two examples just to prove what he says, and I want to give an explanation. Because once we show what he found statistically, and we don't explain it, it has not a lot of meaning. It has no meaning. It shows that there is a structure, very nice, but so what? What does it matter why does it matter whether it has a structure or not? I will compare the very beginning to the very end, and I will compare the beginning of the 4th chapter to the 6th chapter. And here is what we see here below. In the 1st chapter, I didn't translate it in the text, but you can find it that it will be too full as a slide. But I want to tell you what she says at the beginning. They put me as a guard to my vineyard. Samuni notera et akramim. Karmi sheli lo natarti. The girl says, I could not take care of my own vineyard. And they put me there to watch it for them. At the end, she says, Karmi sheli lefanai. I have my own vineyard. And they're happy together. It's bigger than the big palace of Shlomo. And he gave it to the guards, and I have my own vineyard where I'm very happy. And I showed you, without going into techniques, what are the unique words only here in the Bible, or the unique words only here in Shir Hashirim. I put it white on black only here in the Bible, and I put it white on gray only here in Shir Hashirim. You see more words. I'm not going to present them. It will make it dry and too many details, too much examples. But I want to tell you what's the main meaning. At the beginning, Al tir'uni sh'ani shchachoret. Don't look at me. Look how black I am, burned from the sun. I have to work all day long. I'm a slave for others. And I couldn't take care of my own vineyard because I have to take care of their vineyard. At the end, she's very happy after a marriage, after a long love story of 8 chapters. And she says, Karmi sheli lefanai. I'm standing just in front of my own vineyard. It's all mine, and nobody will come here to take it away from me. It's mine, it's yours, and they are together in a unity. That is, it's not the way to analyze a book. It's not the way to analyze a story. But sometimes it's very interesting that you read a whole book, you start with the first 3 pages and you end with the last 3 ones. And afterwards you read the rest of the book, or you think what happened in between. It gives a certain framework of a book, very beginning and very end. We can do that in the Bible, in the Torah. Read the first prakim in Breshit and the last one in Dvarim. It's not our topic. We can apply this rule. One will not be a big Talmid Chacham, but he will get a very interesting framework. At the beginning, she worked for others, and now she is on her own with her own friend. That's the message. They came together. And these are the same words at the beginning and at the end. How did that happen? In every relationship, it has a certain start with challenges, which is just an opening with a lot of expectations. And it ends after a story, a love story. It ends, it develops, it grows. That is what I wanted to show, the first red line. Aleph, beginning to Aleph to the end. Now, what I want to recommend, since it will be very frustrating if I didn't show it all, just read the first part of the Shir Hashirim and the last one, find the same words, and see that the same words appear, and only here, if you search in the search system, but for the understanding of the text, what happened from the beginning to the end. It's the same déjà vu with the same words but it is a totally different atmosphere. It's a totally different situation. That's the story from A to Z. And now I want to show you the second part, which is also no, before I come to the second part, let me show you what I just explained. Kerem haya lishlomo. And it says karmi sheli, white on red. And here karmi sheli. And that's what she says at the beginning. Do not gaze at me disrespectively, seeing that I'm dark, for the sun has tanned me. The sons of my mother were incensed at me. They placed me as a guard of the family vineyard. My vineyard, I did not guard, only for others. Karmisheli only here and only there. At the end, Shlomo, the King Shlomo, the author of the book, Shir Hashirim, he had a vineyard at Baal Hamon. He gave it to the guards. Each would bring for his fruits 1,000 pieces of silver. Wow, Shlomo is a big king, is a rich guy, has a huge vineyard. He is not necessarily the best example for love. Whatever he did afterwards, let's decide, we'll not talk about it, what happened afterwards to him. But what is the author saying? He has a huge vineyard of Baal Hamon, the owner of a lot. My vineyard, says the author, is in front of me, before me. The thousands is for you, Shlomo, the custodian, and 200s for those who guarded its fruits. But I'm the owner of my own. And that's the beauty. The vineyard belongs to him. So what does the vineyard stand for? You have here the two symbols which I wanted, the two lines, terms, context and intertext. The context just showed me with Karmi Sheli and Kerem Haya Lishlomo. Let's search where else in the Bible do we find Kerem Haya Lishlomo. I marked context with red here and here. It's the inclusion of the entire book. I marked in green the intertext with totally different books. Kerem Haya Le. And that takes us back to Yeshayahu chapter 5. A beautiful, beautiful song about the prophet says, Ashirana li yedidi shirat dodi lekarmo. Kerem haya li yedidi bekerem ben shamen. Let me sing now for you, my love, a song of my beloved concerning his vineyard. Yedid. In Shir Hashirim, the friend is called Yedid, Dodi, and she is called Ra'aya, Doda. My love had a vineyard in a fertile mountaintop. Vayazkeu, vayasakleu, vayitaesurok, a beautiful, beautiful story about his vineyard. And afterwards, Yeshayahu tells them, I, Yeshayahu, speaking in the name of God, took care so beautifully of the vineyard, bought the best fruits and the best land, and gave it the best chances to grow and to thrive and to be successful. But what happened? Instead of anavim, I made only beushim, dry, unsuccessful fruits. And what's the story of this vineyard, of this kerem liyedidi? Yeshayahu explains it. It's Am Yisrael. God took care of us. He prepared everything for us. He brought us to the best place, to Eretz Yisrael. But we failed to fulfill his explanations. So if we take the term Kerem Haya Li Didi, Kerem Haya Le Shlomo, and Shlomo is called Yedidia, one doesn't need to add too much explanations to understand that Shlomo and Yedidi, that Kerem Haya Li Shlomo and Kerem Haya Li Didi, that is a hint to Yeshayahu. Who came first? Who took from who? I leave that for the researchers. What's the message? The same token that Yeshayahu was giving a tochacha, a rebuke for Am Yisrael for not having fulfilled what they should have done, the same does Shir Hashirim, because she talks exactly about the same term. He uses the same words. He uses the same picture. He uses the same analogy, the same allegoric technique to talk about Am Yisrael by talking about the vineyard. Yeshayahu was generous enough to explain to the readers what he is talking about. In Shir Hashirim, we have to think about it. We will find it. Let's enjoy a nice love story, but if you think it over, you will find it. And here is the second inclusion. It's not the frame, sorry, it's my mistake. It is the inner part. It's the inclusion about the inner part of the book. In between is chapter 5, and I will not go and read the whole text because there will not be enough time to explain it, but you will see exactly, your hair is like a flock of goats streaming down from the Mount Gilad, is exactly here and here. It's the same wording. These are actually almost 3 psukim with very minor differences, which are compared here. But there is a difference. In chapter 6, in chapter 4, he says, Hinach yafa ra'ayati, hinach yafa inaich yonim. Behold, you are fair, my love. You are fair. Your eyes are like doves. And here he says, in chapter 6, you are fair, my love, like Tirzah, a small city in Menashe, which used to be the city of Mamlechet Yisrael, Tirzah, Shomron and Tirzah. Lovely like Jerusalem, which is the city of Malchut Yehuda. So here the story of a private love story is the story of Tirzah and Jerusalem, the 2 cities of Malchut Israel and Malchut Yehuda. And Tirzah, one of the daughters of Tzlofchad, we are right away with the heroes, women. These 5 women, his daughters. Here he is much more established because he lives in Tirzah and Jerusalem, and there is a hint that it's talking about Am Yisrael, about the 2 kingdoms of Israel and Yehuda. That's the difference of the inner part, which are really twin pieces, 3 psukim, which are like twins. I want to show you now the beautiful next technique and want to dedicate the rest to the intertextuality. And I quoted this midrash very often because it's really a key story. Intertextuality is a very, very well-researched and interesting, attractive topic in modern literature. That you look at one book and what is the hint in the book, what are the wording, what are the motifs continued in this piece of literature. And that is what Ben Azai did. When he was learning, there was fire would surround him. And people ask him, what are you doing? Are you learning Kabbalah, esoteric stuff? He said, no. I connect Divrei Torah to Nevi'im, and Nevi'im, I connect them to Ketuvim, and the Torah is happy as it was the day it was given. When the Torah were primarily given at Mount Sinai, there was a lot of fire. And if I put everything together, there is a fire of enthusiasm. That's what I want to show you now. We connect it all. B'charuzim, lacharoz et zeh, to string with strings of beads, a pasuk in Shir Hashirim. And that is what I want to show you now, a totally new way to look at the, a totally new way to look at Shir Hashirim and the Tanakh. It will be a lot of fire, and it will be a lot of fantastic insights by the contextuality and intertextuality. There are wonderful glasses which we need to use, and I think the modern research enables us very easily to research it, to learn it, and give it a new meaning. Shir Hashirim gets a totally new light. And that is the summary which I enjoy to show often, to show how all the books are connected. Torah, Nevi'im, and Ketuvim. If we go to Shir Hashirim here, which is probably very late, there are many terms which are quite late. For instance, Apirion Asalo HaMelech Shlomo. Apirion is a late word from Greek influence, but it takes together all the previous books. So how does that work? And I want to show you here a fascinating, before we come to the details, I'm a big, I live in the Beit Midrash. That's where I was raised and where I was educated, where I enjoy to be. let's go back for a few minutes to Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva, who started his life as a rabbi, as learning through his wife Rachel. Rabbi Akiva started it with Rachel, and he learned, and he said about Shir Hashirim, the holiest book in the Bible, and he ended his life with the love of Ahavat Hashem. Rav Kook spoke about it. He started with the love of his wife, and he had no knowledge in Jewish studies. And he brought this love to his own knowledge and to all his students and to the Jewish people. And his love continued that when he was teaching and he was killed and died as a Al-Kiddush Hashem, martyrdom, when he was killed, he said, Ve'ahavta et Hashem Elokecha. And he said, Shema Yisrael. His life was full of love from the beginning. He said, Shir Hashirim, if somebody says it is just a story for weddings, Rabbi Akiva says the one who trills their voice when they recite the Song of Songs when they are in the Fiset Hall or makes it like a song, he has no chelek leolam haba. But of course you sing it at a wedding, because the wedding has more meaning than, the wedding is very important, and his life is continuity. But the meaning is that it is an analogy, has meaning of Ahavat Hashem. You learn al yedei, through the Ahavat Isha, Ahavat Hashem. That's Rabbi Akiva. And if it doesn't continue, en lo chelek la'olam haba. And here we have the famous Mishnah. There is a halacha that the Sifrei Kodesh, they have a status of tum'ah. They are not pure, they have a tum'ah, and therefore they are protected. We do not go to the Hilchot tum'ah. Rabbi Akiva says nobody argues that Shir Hashirim has the status of a holy book. She'ein kol ha'olam kulo kedai kayom shenitan bo Shir Hashirim leYisrael. For the whole world is not as worthy as the day on which the Song of Songs was given to Israel. Shekol ha'ktuvim kodesh v'Shir Hashirim kodesh kodashim. All writings are holy, but the Song of Songs is the holy of holiest. And here we have to understand what he says. I would have understood that there are two categories of books. There are beautiful books which have Kedusha, Breshit, Shmot, Torah, Nevi'im, Ketuvim, including Tehillim. They're all holy, Sifrei Kodesh. But there is one book which is a superlative. It is a AAA. It is another status. It comes from another league. It's another level. Shir Hashirim is a AAA, something totally different. That is, I would think, the simple understanding of what Rabbi Akiva says. We don't know yet why. But he says all the books are group A, and Shir Hashirim is a group B. It is uncomparable to all the others. This understanding is challenged by a very interesting Midrash. Midrash Tanchuma, which I understood it the way Midrash Tanchuma explains it, but I didn't trust myself. I was very happy to see that Tanchuma, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, said it exactly in this way. And he explains the Mishnah. And he says, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah said, to what can this be compared, the Mishnah? To a king who took measure of wheat and gave it to a baker. He said to him, extract for me so much fine flour, so much bran, so much coarse bran, and produce enough fine flour from it for one loaf, sifted and superior. So you take from all the material and you purify it, and you choose and you select the best of the best, and that will be superior, but it comes from all the rest. Similarly, all the Ketuvim, all the writings are Kodesh, but Shir Hashirim is Kodesh Kodashim. What do we learn from the Tanchuma? What is new? Tanchuma, the Midrash Tanchuma doesn't say all books are A and Shir Hashirim is B. Midrash Tanchuma says all are holy, but the extract of all the books, the summary, a condensed form, the DNA of the entire Bible is Shir Hashirim. The same token that the baker took the best material, the raw material, which was brought to him, and prepared from it the best of the best. He extracted it from there. But there is much more than to extract. He put it in the oven. He prepared the dough. And he baked it. And he made the best bread of it. So there is not a group A and somewhere else is a group B. Kol HaKtuvim and Shir Hashirim. It flows together. Shir Hashirim comes. Shir Hashirim is an extract of the entire Bible, prepared by a very, very special baker with all the skills to prepare from the wheat to prepare the best bread. That is exactly Shir Hashirim. It takes from the entire Bible, from all the other books, and that is in one word, intertextuality. I learned a lot from this German researcher in Vienna, Ludger Schwienhorst Schönberger, and he was struggling. I met him in person. We were in touch. A wonderful scholar. He published also in English. A wonderful scholar who reviewed Das Hohelied, the Song of Songs. And of course, in the Christian tradition, it has a connection as allegory to the Holy Spirit, to you name it or you don't name it, whatever. It has many, many very, very far-fetched explanations. And he didn't like that. So he started to read the Bible and he said, oh, this text is quoting Yeshayahu, is quoting Mishlei, is quoting Shmot. And here it comes to a wonderful insight. And I enjoy that we live in a time that synagogue and ecclesia, we can learn from each other, a lot to be learned. I want to show you now a few of these examples. And as I told you, from the examples which I'm showing you, each stands alone. It sums up to a beautiful technique of Sefer Shir Hashirim, Megillat Shir Hashirim. But we can learn each example as a learning of one pasuk. And therefore, I will give more time to it than to the overall frame where we need to read the entire book. It says at the beginning, and I structured it from Perek Aleph to the end. Moshcheni acharecha narutza. She tells him, draw me after you, let us run. The king brought me to his chambers. Let us exult and rejoice in you. Nagila v'nismecha vach. Nazkira dodecha miyain meisharim ahevucha. The technique statistically is that Nagila v'nismecha appears in 2 more places in the entire Bible. Yeshayahu, in the Perek of the Geula, v'amar bayom hahu hine Eloheinu zeh, הנה אלוהינו, זה קיווינו לו ויושיענו, זה אדוני קיווינו לו, נגילה ונשמחה בישועתו. You have the translation here. In Tehillim, and we have many, many, many analogies between Yeshayahu and Tehillim, we say at the end of Hallel, זה היום עשה אדוני, נגילה ונשמחה בו. If Shir Hashirim, in a beautiful love story, which is a love story, is quoting the words Nagila v'nismecha bach or Nagila v'nismecha bishuato, Nagila v'nismecha vo, it's like in Yitzhak Perlman, you hear one voice, but you hear many, many voices in the background. That's the music. That's the concerto. If he says the king brought me to his rooms, and I enjoy Nagila v'nismecha vach, you really want to know what the reason is for this joy? You go to Tehillim. You go to Yeshayahu. And that's a commentary. So here we have something very interesting, that the midrash of Shir Hashirim by intertextuality is the pshat. Remember the analogy of the baker? He took it from there and he extracted it. And that's the love. Yeshayahu gave a prophecy of the future. Wonderful. Tehillim, thanks for that. It's a prayer, thanksgiving. Hodul Hashem Kitov, the beginning of the chapter. Shir Hashirim, they come together. Nagila v'nismecha vach. And now I want to show you a fantastic example, which I love very much. It's taking it even further. If we wouldn't have enough with contextuality and intertextuality, here we have a historical context, which is just fascinating, which is actually found in the Midrash. In chapter 1, it says, Lesusati berichvei Pharaoh, dimitich ra'ayati. I have likened you, my darling, to a mare in Pharaoh's chariot. I would not identify such a compliment as a highly recommended statement if a boy goes for a date. Please do not compare the girl to a susa, to a horse, to a mare in Pharaoh's chariot. But obviously, why is he doing that? I have another question. Does a female horse really appear in the battlefield? The male horses are by far stronger than the female. So what did the commentaries do? The non-Jewish commentaries said, oh, it should say lesusi berichvei paro, not lesusati. And they explain whatever they explain, but the fact is, it says lesusati. Where does that appear? I searched for this term only once b'yetziat Mitzrayim. It says, vayirdefu Mitzrayim acherehem vayasigu otam chonim al hayam, kol sus rechev paro ufarashav v'cheelo al pi achirot lifnei Baal Tzefon. The Egyptians chased them, gave chase to them, and all the chariot horses of Pharaoh, his riders, they all were there. The warriors overtook them at the sea, ni pi achirot, next to Baal Tzefon. I spoke in my Haggadah Shiurim about pi achirot, the port of liberty, and Baal Tzefon, Avodah Zarah. I will not repeat it here. But here we have the three words, sus, rechev, paro. Uh-oh. On the battlefield, we have a horse. Sus. In Shir Hashirim, we have a susa. What's going on here? If you quote it properly, but to change sus to susa, you shouldn't do that. It's not serious. It doesn't fit the reality. And here we come to a historical context, which is found in the Midrash. And the historical context goes as follows. That's the battlefield of the Egyptians. And we have a lot of original paintings, a lot of the king, of big fighters, of Pharaoh, Paro, Sus verochvo, and it's quoted in the Haggadah, in the Tanakh, and they have a very, very strong army. So what is a female horse doing there? What's happening here? A female horse who is with the little horses and giving birth, what is she doing in the battlefield? Is that a mistake? So here, this researcher, Professor Lutger, showed me something very interesting. There is a source from the Battle of Kadesh by Armenemheb. And what happened? That is a source where the Egyptians were fighting against another nation, and the other nation is reported. They didn't have that strong an army to fight against the horses and the army of the Egyptians. What did they do? They took a few mares and prepared them very nicely with all the makeup necessarily, and they were driving all the horses of the Egyptian crazy. And that's the way this other nation was winning the fight, the war against Egypt. And that is well documented. Now look at that. First of all, please, if you don't understand the Pasuk Lesusati, if you don't understand it, not a reason to delete the taf. It's a reason to think it over, to be a little bit more modest, and to say, I don't understand it. And if just deleting it is not the explanation, is not the skill of interpretation. That's what they did. They took against the susim, the horses, in the war, the chariots. They took a susa, mares, and they were driving them crazy in the battlefield. What happened? They were driving them crazy, and that is like Am Yisrael. Am Yisrael was driving crazy all the military forces of the Egyptian. And what happened? They failed. And instead of war and killing, it was a crazy love story for Am Yisrael because Hashem took them out. And it was quite a fatal love story for the horses of the Egyptian. What an amazing explanation, which gets so much beautiful explanation. And still, Lesusati berichvei paro, don't say that if you go for a date. But if it's allegorically, it is a beautiful hint. Interestingly enough, that the Midrash quoted by the Torah Tmima says, Dimitich ra'ayati, that's what I compared you. Dimitich ra'ayati lefi shahayu galei hayam nidmim lesusim. The waves of the water of the sea, they looked like lesusim nekevot. And the Mitzrim, the horses of the Mitzrim, were irritated by these waves. So the Midrash makes it up because they didn't know the historical background. What I wanted to show here, that the real Pasuk is explained better by the Nimshal, by the analogy to Shmot and to historical analogy than whatever you have in Shir Hashirim. Don't go for a date and compare compare the date to a mare in Pharaoh's chariot. Not a good idea. Here we have another very simple explanation. Doesn't need a lot of explanations. In Perek Dalet it says, Nofet titofna siftotaich kala dvash v'chalav tachat leshonech. Honey and milk. Honey and milk appear in the entire Bible only as a mashal, a description for Eretz Yisrael. More than 20 times. Honey and milk do not appear together anywhere else, only in Shir Hashirim. So, isn't that obviously a hint to Eretz Yisrael and to the honey of milk, Eretz Zavat Chalav Udvash? Because Shir Hashirim is taken the raw material, as we learned from Tanchuma, from the other books, and is explaining, you want to have Chalav Udvash, Zavat Chalav Udvash, only one place, Eretz Yisrael. And the same is true when it says in Shir Hashirim Dalet, Nerd vekarkom kane vekinamon im kol atzei levona, mor ve'ohalot im kol rashei besamim. All these beautiful perfumes, these spices of, I don't know the details, nard and saffron, fragrance reed, and cinnamon, with all the aromatic woods, myrrh and aloes, all the choices of perfumes or of spices. These terms, kaneh, kinamon, rashei besamim, appear only twice in the Bible. In Shmot, when the Mikdash is described, and we have the Ktoret. That was part of the Avodat HaKodesh in the Mikdash. It gave us the atmosphere, very good spices, very good perfumes, exactly the same terms. So obviously, Shir Hashirim talks about wonderful perfumes, but you have in mind the deja vu where it comes from, in Shmot, in the Mikdash. Here we have in Shir Hashirim Hey, I could have arranged it as per themes, per topics, but I preferred you have the presentation with you when you read Shir Hashirim. You can go, I didn't choose for every chapter an example, but you can follow the sequence of Shir Hashirim. The girl says, Metzauni hashomerim masovevim ba'ir. Hikuni fetzauni nasu et rididi me'alai, shomrei hachomot. השבעתי אתכם בנות ירושלים, אם תמצאו את דודי, אם תגידו לו שחולת אהבה אני. I met the watchmen who patrol in the town. They struck me, they bruised me. The guards of the wall stripped me of my mantle. I adjure you, O maidens of Jerusalem, bnot Yerushalayim, if you meet my beloved one, tell him this, that I'm faint with love. Cholat ahava ani. These terms in the walls of Jerusalem and the watchman, and is exactly the same wording which appears only in these two places. If it's not enough, the technique of the three words in Pasuk Vav in Sefer Yeshayahu, just read the Pasuk before. Kiv'al bachur betula, yiv'aluch banaich, umesos chatan al kala, yasis alaich Elohaich. God will rejoice over his bride, the same way about Am Yisrael, the same way as the groom over his bride. So the mashal, we don't have to create an explanation. Yeshayahu says it in full terms. Chatan v'kala is a Kadosh Baruch Hu and Am Yisrael. That's what we say in Shir, in Lecha Dodi, Yasis Alayich Elohayich. It's quoted there because Shabbat Am Yisrael is compared to a kala, so Shir Hashirim is talking about it. Yes, the pshat is a love story, but the pshat is also what the hint is, what the nimshal is. Here we have quite a fascinating analogy and interesting. I use wonderful parshanim that Mikra, Olama Mikra, and others, Mikra Israel, and they say, oh, the term Vayashrua, Vayahalelua in Shir Hashirim is quite unique. It appears only also in Mishlei. So what? What does it say in Shir Hashirim? Achat hi yonati tamati, achat hi le'ima, bara hi le'yoladeta, ra'u havanot, vayashruha, melachot ufilakshim, vayahalelua. Only one is my dove, my perfect one, the only one of her mother, the delight of her who bore her, maidens or women or girls, banot, see, and they declare her happy, vayashruha. Le'asher means to prove, ishurim, and it means also osher, happiness. Queens and concubines, and praise her, vayahalelua. The term vayashruha, vayahalelua appear together in Eshet Chayil. Eshet Chayil appears in the Friday night when we sing Eshet Chayil, but it is taken from Mishlei, and that would be a whole shiur on Sefer Mishlei, that the bottom line of Mishlei, which is written by Shlomo, the bottom line is a very smart, wise lady. Eshet Chayil Mi'imtza. And he talks about the Eshet Chayil, Aleph Bet. And that's the conclusion of the entire book. So the wisdom, Piha Patcha B'chokhmah, she opened her mouth in wisdom. The wisdom comes from the entire book of Mishlei. The bottom line is, ask the Eshet Chayil. She is the example, she is the personification of wisdom. Kamu vaneha vayashruha, ba'ala vayahalela. Her children declare her happy. Her husband praises her. And rabot banot asu chayil. You have exactly the same terms. In the same token that the Eshet Chayil at the end of Shir Hashirim is the personification of wisdom, of musar, of ethics and ethical behavior. And Torah timecha, shma beni musar avicha, v'al titosh Torah timecha. The mother has Torah. And who is at the end closing Mishlei? The woman, the Eshet Chayil, because she is the personification of everything we learned in the book. What is she doing? Vayashruha, vayahalelua. If Shir Hashirim says she loves him, he loves her, and he loves her, and he praises her, vayashruha, vayahalleluha, that's the hint on wisdom. That is a book of Shlomo, and that is a book of Shlomo. That is an amazing technique. And here I want to bring you an example which is unique, because if we don't think about the difference, we don't get the point at all. Ani ledodi ve'alai keshukato. She says, I'm my beloved's, and his desire is toward me. What is she saying? She says, I know my power, I know my qualities, and I love him. I want him to come to me, and he should have a desire to come to me. And we will continue our love, read me Perek Zayin, and continue to the end. It gets better and stronger and more powerful there. The word chukah, chukato, appears in the Bible twice. No, 3 times. Once in Shir Hashirim and twice at the beginning in Breshit. Teshukato is a code, or we should call it in the world of computer hyperlink. You can come to me and you will have the Teshukah, and we have our love, and we will grow in our love and thrive in our love. Go for it. I want it. I want you that you want it and have the desire. What happened in the Gan Eden? After the sin, she was punished, the snake was punished, and Adam was punished. אל האישה אמר, הרבה הרבה יצבונך והרונך בעצב תלדי בנים, ואל איתשך תשוקתך והוא ימשול בך. She was punished for having brought the sin to her, to Adam, that she will desire, it will be her desire for your husband, and he shall rule over you. That was the end of Gan Eden. He will rule over you. No good. And in the Chet, the next story of sins in Breshit, Adam, Cain, Vehevel, again, the Chet and Chukato. We have a lot of sins in Gan Eden, in the paradise. That's the reason they were expelled from the paradise. And right afterwards, the first murder between brothers, Cain and Hevel. This Chukah was not a good one. This Chukah was a punishment. And he will rule over you. Shir Hashirim has something very special in it. It goes back to the first state in Sefer Breshit. When we lived in the paradise, he did not rule over her, and she didn't rule over him. There were no sins, and there was no violence between brother. It was just a Gan Eden. That's what we say at the Sheva Brachot. Let's go back to the paradise. In the paradise, there was a chukah, but nobody is ruling about the other. Nobody is doing that because of a sin, because of a desire to be stronger and to be violent. What a beauty. That is the pshat in Shir Hashirim. Let's go back to love at the very beginning, when Adam and Chava were created, and they lived in Gan Eden. Ani ledodi ve'alai chukato, in the very authentic beginning of the word. And I want to come to the last example, which is a triple one. We have here a pasuk which has three different contexts. And I forgot to mark one, which is a terrible. Now it works. If we analyze the pasuk with intertextuality, we can learn a lot. The pasuk says, "Simeni kachotam al libecha, kachotam al zroecha, ki azak kamavet ahava, kasha kishol kina, rishafeha, rishpei esh, shalhevet ya. מים רבים לא יוכלו לכבות את האהבה ונהרות לא ישטפוה. אם ייתן איש את כל הון ביתו באהבה, בוז יבוזו." They both together declare as the most beautiful fulfillment of love. Make me a signet upon your heart, like tefillin, like a seal upon your hand. For love is fierce as death, passion is mighty as Sheol. It started as dart of fire, a blazing flame. Shalhevet Yah is the fire of God. Shalhevet Yah is very strong, very big. It can also be Merchav Yah, Shalhevet Yah. Mayim Rabim, vast floods cannot quench love, nor rivers drown it. If a man gives all his wealth for love, he would be laughed to scorn. These three sections which are highlighted, they are from Haggai. When at the time of Shivat Sion, they came back, Zerubbabel got a prophecy that you will be a signet of God, and you will lead Am Yisrael. And that is a deja vu of the destruction in Yirmiyahu. Samticha kachotam, simeni kachotam is a hyperlink. What does simeni kachotam mean? It means what it says in Haggai, And in Haggai, it is a correction, a déjà vu, letova, in better terms than what it says in Yirmiyahu. What a wonderful story in one pasuk. Naharot lo yishtafucha appears twice in Yeshayahu. God will bring us back from all the exile. Velehava lo tiv'ar bach. The lehava will not be. Here will be a shalhevet yah, a good fire of God. But there will be in the place where I should put that also in red, b'mo'esh lo tikaveh. You will not be burnt. And the lehava, it will not damage you. And nobody will be damaged. The water will not be, the river will not drown you. That is the tikkun, which happens in Shir Hashirim. And the same is in Mishlei, which is a wonderful context, exactly the same words. By quoting it in Shir Hashirim, the author of Shir Hashirim has the same behavior as the baker who gets the best raw material, prepares the best material. We have sirens here. We continue. Wow. I don't want you to see that here. The Yerutim. I just saw it. Wow. Sorry for interrupting.
Benny, maybe you should go to a safe place.
Yeah.
Yeah, there
It's
is none.
okay.
There is none. There
What
was
do you
no
mean?
siren here. I'm done soon. What I wanted to show you, the intertextuality, is a masterful piece of modern technique. We can use it much better with computer science, with statistics. We can learn so much of insights of the Torah, which is this midrash, this slide. How does it relate to Pesach? I will make it very short. Pesach, we read the Haggadah. I gave a lecture on that. That was my first lecture, Rabbi J, in 1990 in your shul, about the structure of all the Chagim. Pesach is the very beginning. Out of Egypt, and the story goes, we started in Egypt, we came to Har Sinai, to Eretz Yisrael, and we are Chag HaAsif and Tishrei in Eretz Yisrael. And the whole story, I will not repeat the shiur. It's here in Hebrew and in English in your source books. The very beginning is we got out of Egypt. The very beginning is a love story. And the love story in Egypt, we had horses, lesusati berichvei paro. We didn't know where it's going to. But the richness of the Bible, which is extracted in Shir Hashirim, Shir Hashirim tells it all. It's a relationship of love. Yes, there are Taryag mitzvot. There are many obligations and commandments. It's a whole life of the Torah, but it is a love story. It started with love. It started with the values and with a relationship. That is what we have in Mishlei of Shlomo. There are two psukim. Ki motzi matzah chayim vayafek ratzon meHashem. For he who finds me finds life and has won the favor of Hashem. And another pasuk says in Mishlei Yudchet, matzah isha matzah tov. Look at that, the same structure. In the first part of the pasuk, motzi matzah chayim, matzah isha matzah tov. Finding Hashem and finding a wife is the same. It's a full analogy. And it has the same wording, vayafek ratzon meHashem, at the end of these two psukim. He who finds a wife has found happiness and has won the favor of the Lord. It's the same. Love with the wife is the love with Hashem. It's about the deepest relationship. Rambam says it very clearly in Hilchot Tshuva, that how is the Ahavat Hashem? It is compared, and he thinks about it all the time, כאילו חולה, חולי אהבה. And he cannot think about anything else. And it is like, והוא ששלמה אומר, that is what he says, שאין דעתו פנויה מאהבת אותה אישה. It's compared to the love to his wife, or the love of the wife to her husband. It is a mashal. So we have a very beautiful example. Rambam brings it, halacha lema'aseh, and he says very clearly, that is called Shir Hashirim. And the concept was implied by Shlomo, King Shlomo, when he stated as a metaphor, I'm lovesick, cholat ahava. Indeed, the totality of the Shir Hashirim is a parable describing this love. That's it, the chidush. If Chazal explain it as Am Yisrael, it is according to scientific tools of intertextuality. If we look at the Bible as one unit, that's the pshat. That is not the allegoric explanation. It's the really pshuto shel mikra, if we look at it all together. These are the references, one in German, and the others you have it in Hebrew and in English. Thank you very much for your attention. If there are questions, comments, and wishes, I'm happy to hear.
There's just the one question I'll say for you. I see, which came first, Shir, Hashirim, Tehillim, or Yeshayahu? Well, you want to, are you okay, Beni? Are there sirens? You can go. You go if there's.
I'm perfectly fine. I'm perfectly fine.
Okay.
I'm perfect. There was no, if there would have been a siren here, I would have run.
Okay.
There wasn't. So,
okay.
So what came first? I think that's an interesting explanation. And it reminds me a story. Two chemists went to a museum of art, an art gallery. And they had an interesting discussion there about the pieces of art. How did Rembrandt prepare the green and the yellow and the blue? And they had a very intense discussion about how do you create the green and the yellow and the blue? Very interesting question about chemists. And the tour guide, the expert in art, he says, you missed the point. These questions are interesting for chemistry. You leave that in your laboratory. But if you look at the piece of art, it's not the question, what came first, the green or the blue? I know, Rabbi J, that's the way biblical scholarship works. The critical historical research, who took from who. And one day it's like that, and one day it's the other way around, and they will fight forever. But what I'm sure about, they might be true. They might be right, because how did the chemist find out was the green created by Rembrandt and the blue and the red? But they missed the piece of art. I think that Yeshayahu, who is in itself a double layer of Bimei Bait Rishon, Yeshayahu ben Amoz, and from chapter 40, it is Yemei Shivat Zion. Yeshayahu wants to appear from different periods. So the question is misleading, who came first? And the answer is not only that we don't know, I think we shouldn't focus on that. If I say that today in my age, I looked many, many years, who took from who was first and who was the other one. And I hinted it that Shir Hashirim has a word, apirion, which is quite late in Hebrew, in biblical Hebrew. There's a lot to be said about it. But that's not the message of the book. The book wants to tell you a story. And the story is that we took everything together and we have to integrate Yeshayahu and Mishlei and Shmot, and to see it as a wonderful orchestra. That's the reason I brought it at the beginning. I know this answer is not what you ask, because I actually I'm not trying to escape it. We can talk about it, but I think it's missing the point of the beauty of Shir Hashirim. It's like when I was playing King David in my grandchild's kindergarten, and Hasaba shel Tehillah higia, and I was playing, and one of the children told me, "Lo, ze lo David HaMelech. He has a watch. King David didn't wear a watch." She is right, because I don't think that King David had a watch. So she found the right criteria to tell I'm not King David. But what I wanted to show them, that King David has a message for them to pray and to learn and to hope. So don't confuse me with facts. Don't watch my watch. Look at the message.
Beni, do you think that Ben Azai in his machloket with Rabbi Akiva, identified Shir Hashirim with Zeh Sefer Toldot Adam.
I'm not sure if that is spelled out there. It might be. I don't remember that Ben Azai made comments on Shir Hashirim. I'm not aware of. Are you hinting to a midrash that I should remember?
I'm saying I'm thinking that he read Zeh Sefer Toldot Adam as being identical with Shir Hashirim.
That's interesting. I have to think about that. It's an interesting connection. You have thoughts? That's what you think.
I do. And interestingly enough, Zev Sefer Toldot Adam is where the Rav discovered Ish HaHalacha.
Interesting.
The other thing is, do you think Susati, that you made the beautiful midrash on Susati, implies that the Bnei Israel defeated Paro by process of seduction?
So this story, which first of all, if anybody has the time or the skills to find exactly the historical source, I found references to it. I couldn't find it really the historical source. Would be fantastic if somebody could find it, where it's really described that the enemies of the Egyptian army took lady horses to drive all the horses of the Egyptian crazy. If that is reported, it says in the references from the 14th century before the common era, if that is true, so it might have been a tradition. The message of this, I call it the historical archaeological drush on Shir Hashirim, and Shir Hashirim is a drush on Yetziat Mitzrayim. But don't play it down by saying it's just a drush. There was a tradition of horses which were dangerous for the Egyptian army. That is Am Yisrael. Am Yisrael was a little group, a little nation of slaves. But once they left, they were very dangerous for the Egyptian. Vayomer el amo hinei am bnei Israel. They drove them crazy. So if I look at the text, whether it is historically, archaeologically supported, I'm not yet there. I found the references, fine. It's a nice idea. We will find more. We have it as a very good pshat that you never say to at the first date, you look like a wonderful horse. That's not a good starting point for a shidduch, for a date. But now we understand that the nimshal is more important than the mashal. Because it is a mashal nimshal at the same time. Interesting enough, analogy in Hebrew is called mashal, mishlei. Mashal actually says to rule, moshel, memshala. The mashal gives you a good picture what you want to say about Am Yisrael. It is a very good picture. We cannot summarize the whole story of Kadosh Baruch Hu and Am Yisrael with a love story. It's too long from Egypt and the Red Sea and the Makot and all the story. You can bring it together very, very condensed. You can extract it, as the Midrash says, in a love story. That is what Shir Hashirim does. So I want to be clear. I think what I, for many years, when I was learning Shir Hashirim, I did not feel comfortable to say it's a mashal for Am Yisrael, because Shir Hashirim talks about the Raya, Shnei Shadayich, Kishnei, and so on. There was a lot of body descriptions about very, very practical, very physical. So why to say it's a mashal? Because you're not allowed to talk about love and the body, about to talk about the women and the breasts. No, the pasuk says it. So I was very uncomfortable. But since I learned about intertextuality, whether that is for Tehillim or any other book, I think that Chazal explaining it is a mashal of Am Yisrael, ze hapshat lo shel Shir Hashirim, ze hapshat shel Tanakh. We learn Tanakh. We don't learn a book. We learn it in the entire book, and as such, That is the pshat. Chazal say the pshat.
Ironically, Shlomo HaMelech himself was overcome by female horses.
That is a wonderful point. That is a wonderful message. Because if we say love, and the pasuk from Mishlei Perek Vav says it very clearly, that be very careful with love. You can fail. You have to, it can be a esh and shalhevet. That's what the pasuk says. Shlomo is the example that he failed. And just before Eshet Chayil in Mishlei Perek Lamed Aleph, it says that his mother, Asher Yisarato Imo, his mother gave him Mashanikra Musar. She told him, oh, Shlomo, don't run after the woman. The king has to be particularly careful not to have hundreds of women in his harem. So there is a lot of message to say about that. Shlomo is the author of Shir Hashirim. He is not the best example. We need to be a feinschmecker about love. Big time feinschmecker.
He was more like Richbe Paro than the Merkava of the...
Absolutely. I want to wish everybody Chag Sameach. Thanks for joining. You can see that from my enthusiasm to teach here is quite therapeutic for me. And I want to thank you for always joining and coming. And if you have comments, please send me emails. You have my email address on the handouts. I actually think that was effort from my part to look at the book in its entity, the entire book. I'm planning to prepare on each book like an overview and to see it in the broader context of the Bible. This context has a lot to contribute with insights and to have the big picture.
Thank you, Dr. Beni. Always a pleasure. I think we should take a vote if you should speak in English or Hebrew. Okay, and we'll let you know the results of the vote. Okay.
Yeah, let me know in Hebrew that I understand it.
Okay, you want to speak in German? Hold on. You know
No.
languages? How many languages do you know?
Listen. The Yerushalmi says, "V'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam." The Yerushalmi says, "V'dibarta bam belashon hakodesh."
Okay.
This drasha did not make its way to the Bavli.
Yes.
It didn't work in Bavel.
I understand it doesn't make it
but
to the
we are
Bavli.
blessed to learn in Eretz Yisrael belashon kodesh.
Okay.
So I understand your preference for English.
I mean,
but
that's fine. It's just I know the Hamonam. I'm talking, but okay.
You have a point. You have a point. The
We've
Yerushalmi
discussed
also
this
has
in the past. I know we've talked about this.
And let me tell you the last comment. In Halach Ma'anya, we invite everybody to remember the story Di Achlu Avatana Ba'arada Mitzrayim, and everybody is invited in Aramaic. Kol dichfin yetei v'yochol, kol tzrich yetei v'yifsach. But if we talk about the future, we say hashtahacha. Now we are here, and we are slaves. In the future, l'shana haba'ah, we speak Hebrew. L'shana haba'ah b'nei chorim. So there is also a point to do it in Hebrew.
Thank you. By the way, I also like to quote, heavy zarg mitzvah kala kibechamura. So be as careful with the light and heavy mitzvah. The Rambam says mitzvah kala is simchat haregel and to speak Hebrew. I like to quote. The Rambam does say that's the mitzvah kala. It's very interesting, Rambam, because it's very, that's, anyways. Okay, as in the Berksat Bivrit, Toda Rabah, Chag Sameach.
Toda Rabah, Bsorot Tovot.
Okay, we should have good things.
Duim leTzion berina im kol hachatufim v'kol all the hostages.
Amen. Okay, everybody, please God, tomorrow again, 11 and 1, and Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, 11 and 1, Thursday, 9:15, 10:45. Please invite a friend. There's still lots of shirim left, so we hope to learn with you and your friends. Okay, have a wonderful day, everybody. Good things. Thank you. Okay, bye-bye, everybody.
Thank you.